think it's working. I didn't finish my candy. Hold on. All right, let me clear all these messages and welcome. Phone's off. There we go. I thought I'd have the candy done. So, wow, already 73 of you here. That's awesome, and it looks different. Let me look. That's interesting. They updated the way this looks, so I'm sharing with what the live stream thing looks. It looks like a font change. It looks like different than last time, but hey, whatever. Welcome to Vlog Thursday. There you go. Let's see. What do we have here? Look at all these people from everywhere. Would you specify the brand of tea and sweetener? I don't really drink. I drink like hot tea, but not sweet tea. So I don't know. I have no context for that unless you're asking somebody else a question. Bash the like button. We're going to start there. We have it written on the back of this laptop right here. It says bash the like button. So go ahead and do that. Greetings from Switzerland. Awesome. Got people all over the place here. Traverse City. We got some Michiganders here. Florida. And all over the place. So, what did I title this? Cybersecurity discussions. Yeah, we're going to go there. We'll actually talk about it out of order, and we'll talk about Synology first because it is not the talk I wanted to have about Synology. It's taken apart for a reason and not for demonstration. Oh, hot sauce. That's right. We should start at the hot sauce. So let's do that real quick. What do we got here? There we go. I didn't eat it. I ate the hot sauce earlier. I don't like eating as much while I'm doing this because then it's just kind of messy. And I don't know. I don't like watching people eat as much, with the exception of hot ones. I don't know if people want to watch me eat as I chew up a piece of candy that I forgot to chew on for there. But anyways, Mr. Payne is what this is brought to you by. That was what I was having earlier today till my nose was watering and things were good. This is from Pepper Palace. Execute your taste buds with Mr. Payne. I put it back in the fridge where it belongs, but yeah, this stuff was good. That is really hot. That was salsa and added Mr. Payne to the salsa today. And then Steve grilled some chicken or something like that. Let's see here. Denmark, Tennessee, William Daughtery. Hello, can I use multiple Lenovo docking stations to achieve connection of more than 2 UHD monitors for my T590? I don't know. Now, there's a limitation on how many of these support, but I don't know what that limitation is. But you'd have to look up how many different USB-C video outs. Now, oddly, I don't know about 4K, but I know this Lenovo L480, I can use 2 of the USB-Cs on here to get multiple monitor outputs. So I can have my main screen and 2 others with it. I don't know with other models what those limitations are. So that's something I'm less familiar with because I just haven't tested it. But I'm going to guess that you might be able to, because if the docking station is emulating like an HDMI output, then maybe that does work that way, where you go in from USB-C with video out and it turns it into HDMI. I don't have a docking station, so I don't know. I plug my extra monitors in just with USB-C. So definitely interesting. Oh, I see my son is in here, Marcus, asking for pizza. I'm assuming, Marcus, you would like the pizza to be brought to you, so I can do that. You'll have to message me directly, not on here, as to what kind of pizza you would like to eat. And we can take care of the pizza situation. That's my son, for those of you that don't know. All right, on to the topic of Synology. Yes, you want pizza, but yes, you have to type a message. My son's lucky enough to have my cell phone number for now. And, yeah. So, oh, that seems bad. All right. Failure. Get the veggie pizza with all the hot peppers. So, can you get a pizza? No, I don't know about that. Oh yes, carrier grade NAT. Yes, I have heard of carrier grade NAT. You're going to see more of it because we don't have enough IP addresses. But back to the Synology. So I have next to me a Synology. Let's pull up the model on here because I'm doing a review of it. So let's find the site for it. Well, there we go. This cool looking thing, the SA3600. I think that's the right model. Let me look. It's probably written on here somewhere. Oh, I have an SA3200. So product SA3200. Make sure I got the right one. 3200D. There we go. This is the one that's sitting on the table right here. And this is a really neat, high availability, dual storage controller, automatic system level production up to 36 drives because it has expansion bays. Obviously, there's not 36 available in this particular configuration, but you can use the expanders to add more into it. And I'm working on a review of this particular Synology. It's really cool. And this is the slide out mechanism from the back. Which is definitely neat. Yes, it does have two 10 gig on it and the mini SAS HD port. That's for the expanders. So that's pretty cool. And I like it, and it's been kind of fun to test, but I'm going to, full disclosure. Now, a couple of things first. This is a demo unit that has been shipped many times to many people for demos and whatnot. So it has made its rounds. And day one, it worked fine. Day two, this is acting flaky, this particular module. But to me, this makes it that much more interesting because the device having that failure and seeing how Synology does it now becomes part of the review. So Synology sent this to me for review. I have to send it back. We're doing some testing with it. During my testing, one module doesn't always start. Now, sometimes it does start, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't start, it just doesn't detect. It gets like in a boot loop or something like that, which is weird. But hey, so these things happen, not too big of a deal. So we go ahead and pull the module out. And when I have the whole system configured now, ready for my demonstration test. And we were already doing the failover the other day, and it was failing over perfectly fine. All I did was power it down and power it back on. So I'm not sure what caused it. But as I stated, I know that these are demo units that have been shipped many times, repackaged and shipped, repackaged and shipped. So I'm wondering if something came loose. So I'm also kind of, like I said, part of this demo is going to be going through Synology and making sure, just seeing how they deal with it. Of all the Synologies we've had, like all the DS918s and the other ones we sold, we've not had any failures at all. And I'm working up to a follow-up video on Synology in terms of how many of them we deploy. So Synology's been a nice, for one, not just their Synology surveillance stations, but also we're really happy with the Synology like DS918s. We just been dropping these in at a lot of small businesses that don't need a Microsoft server. They just need some local file sharing and some backup and the services it offers, and it just works. They have been like so easy to deploy. They're turnkey. And it's kind of like that small business niche. I think Synology's really put themselves in a good position for it because even though it's not fully open source, which is one thing that I wish it was, having kind of a nice, easy to use web UI that gets you quick and easy access to the features you're looking for, not bad. You got a little 3-person office, need some file sharing, looking for a turnkey solution. Synology kind of fits that in a really easy way with their some of their devices. And you've got a couple varieties to choose from, but this one was intriguing because this is them trying to get into the enterprise market. Now, it's interesting to me because it's not active HA. It's active passive. So active passive means there's disruption in the failover process. But for example, even though this failed, I can keep working on my review of this device as a product other than the failover features because, well, now it's working in single mode and it's actually working perfectly fine because it's a active passive system. So this one has passively been removed from the unit altogether because it also, the fans are stuck on high on it when it tries to boot up. So I didn't want to leave it in there because it's just spinning the fans at full speed, which was kind of annoying. So I've still kept using it. Now, one thing I will note here is this. The stupid thing that I have in my hand right now, we have a couple stupid problems. First stupid problem is, and I think they show, let me show it here on the screen so you can see a little bit closer, is, where was it? Do you see this right here, about middle? That is a 9-pin serial port. Yes, 9-pin serial port. So in my hand is a 9-pin serial port as well with a USB on the other end. I keep these around just in case. And then we have an adapter because this is female, this is female. And most all the ones I've ever seen of these are female. And I didn't have, well, I can't say I don't have, I just don't know what box it's in, a standard male-male adapter, but I had a male-male cable to bridge the gap in between. So I was a little bit, because I wanted to see if there's some diagnostic output on this. And that's one disappointment from Synology is that it has a 9-pin serial on it. And this is a brand new product here. This is not old, this is not ancient. But having a 9-pin serial on it, yeah, and you can point out that yes, there's plenty of commercial equipment out in the field that does, but it's, come on, it's fading away. It's 2020. If I was going to design something, I'm going to be not leaning towards 9-pin serial on it, but hey, who knows? So what are you going to do? Let's catch up with the questions a little bit. So, good morning from Tokyo. Wow. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, straight RS-232 connector. You know, I didn't need a null modem cable for it, so it's just straight RS-232 9-pin. Yeah, PS2 ports. There we go. The 20-30 seconds is about, I didn't really time it, but yeah, the failover was roughly 20-30 seconds on it. So it wasn't, obviously with that pause, probably more like 20 seconds, maybe a little bit less because I had VMs set up on an NFS share and they did fail over and they continued to work. Now, they gave a lot of errors, couldn't find the hard drive, blah, 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 but there didn't appear any data loss when it reconnected. So, and it did reconnect and I didn't have to reboot the VM, but I only got to test that once because I was finishing it off towards the end of the day. I powered everything down, proper shutdown. I didn't unplug it. I wanted to make sure I continued my testing because later is when I do my other test, which is the random yanking out and catastrophic failure of power by powering everything off while there's some active disk read and writes going on to see how it handles. That is later testing. I never even got to that part of the test. So that's going to be, it's going to be kind of fun to test, but the first test is obviously going to be is how quick can you replace this. Now, one thing I will say, and I don't have my, or do I? Yeah, I can turn it on. I'll turn on the overhead camera. The way these modules slide in and out and come apart, that's actually really cool. So that part I like quite a bit. Matter of fact, let's do this and slide this over and put the overhead on. So should be this one. This works really well, so this is kind of cool. It just comes apart. So that part I liked about it, so it's easy to access everything. Got some memory slots in here. The fans just kind of snap out. So when I do my full review of this, overall I think it's a really well-built system. It's got the dual fans like that, so you got, you know, the two pushed together. It's got meets all the right design. It's not, I don't think it's too high a wattage or anything like that, so I like how easy this was to take apart. Actually, one more time on the back of it too. Whoops, this one. So when you're looking at the back of it, it just slides out and it's got this little lever. So I'll show how all the action works when I get to the actual review. Oh, and by the way, if you didn't notice, old style cable, and they've got more than one. I don't know if this one's also a serial, but I thought it was cool because I mean it's like the old style serial cable in there, the old DB9 style like that. So kind of neat. But by overall, like the way this is built, the quality and workmanship, everything is really good. I have a feeling, and I would actually blame the problems with this particular module probably have a lot more to do with the fact that this is a demo unit and has been abused by lots of people demoing it. So it's been out for a little while. There's people that reviewed it like months and months ago, so I'm pretty sure. They told me they told me about this a long time ago, maybe January-ish or December, and I just didn't get in line, so it took all the way till now before it gets to me to do a demo. So other review places had it, so it's kind of been bounce package. So I'm going to make sure that's very clear when I do the video, that that's one of the aspects of it, is that it wasn't like I think it failed because we haven't really had any problems with Synology when it comes to quality. It's been really solid. I think it more has to do with the fact that it's probably been bounced around a lot. So let's see. What else do we have in here? Let's see. Is it as good as a TrueNAS server? No. It is not the same price as a TrueNAS server either, so I don't think you could really throw it in the same category as an IX system-based failover HA TrueNAS system. It's nice, but it's going to be, less than half the price for the hardware, so you can't really say it's kind of like saying, comparing, two different vehicles going, well, it goes that fast, is the same quality as the car that goes this fast. You're in very different price ranges, so not necessarily. Of course, that's also what gets you a 20-second active passive versus a almost no disruption on a TrueNAS system. But a TrueNAS system, like I said, is going to be substantially more expensive and very different. The way TrueNAS works is there's a lot of differences in TrueNAS compared to the way you work with a Synology. So this has the DSM software on there, and that's actually what's interesting as well. There is a full-blown DSM on here where you can fail over, and this is what I want to test, is failing over not just the data, but other services that are running on here and how they handle. So that's going to be kind of interesting diving into some of that. Yeah, it better be nice for $7K retail they want for. So yeah, it is around $7,000 for this box, but for the level of stuff you're getting in a failover system, that's actually pretty reasonable for a back-end storage server, seen as the amount of functionality you get with a Synology. Some of the ones, I think the one I reviewed was over $60,000 for the TrueNAS. So you're talking about something that's close to 10 times the price that I reviewed. So you can say, well, it doesn't do as good as a TrueNAS, but the TrueNAS was closer outfitted as we had it for like $60,000. So, I hope for $60,000 it fails over really smooth and works well, and it did. My demos were really good on the Prius. They make cheaper ones in the failover. I'm talking about the way it was spec'd when it shipped. Then it does include drive prices, and 7K does not include any hard drives on this particular one here. So, depending on management processor, Corey Thompson says RS-232 might just be a keep it simple stupid, as adding a USB might double the cost. Maybe, I don't know. It could, because there are none at all USB. These are, Synology specs their own boards, so there's probably some truth to what Corey said here. There's no USB at all. These are custom fab. This is not like a slightly customized common market board customized for Synology, because someone has pointed that out before. They'll look at the board that someone used and go, oh, that's just a super micro board, until you look closer at it and you realize it was specifically built for that particular company. In the case of TrueNAS, someone had said, oh, aren't they similar to super micro? And I'm like, not really. Yes and no. Yes, it may start as a base, but all the extra connectors, the way the edge connectors slide in and everything else, that's all very custom and was custom built for their systems. Versus Synology, I don't think this board is common at all. There's nothing about this board that could even make me look at it and think it's, part of some other system. If it's I wonder if it's the cheapest high availability storage server you can get. That might be. That's an interesting thing. So there's two things that Synology offers. They offer the SA3200, and I believe the other one is called the UC. The difference between them, though, is, yeah, you see Linus break it. Did he work on one of these? I honestly don't know. I haven't watched the Linus video in a little while, but The thing is, they do make an active one, but it doesn't run the full DSM software. This is probably the least expensive one that you can get that still runs the DSM software. So it's kind of a, it might be probably for something that runs the DSM. I don't know the price. I guess I could look it up real quick for the UC3200. So UC3200, I think that's what it's called. Meh. I'll have to go on their product list again. Products. Do they still sell that one, I guess? We'll look together. So you're not just staring at me staring at a screen. You can get lost on the screen with me. DSM, IT Solutions. I guess enterprise data. Why can't I just find it by the product? Business file server? Why not? Yeah, well, give me where's your products? Two. Well, whatever. Could use some better navigation here, guys, because I looked at solutions where I Googled and can find the device, but if I don't Google for the device, I can't find the device. And I thought it was called a 3200. See, it finds it right away if I do this. So this is different because this is the one that it looks identical, but it is different because delivering reliable, high availability iSCSI services. This is very specifically and only for delivering iSCSI at HA. So let's see, what does this one cost? Is it on Amazon? That's always a quick and easy to... It's about the same price. So this costs about $6,500, and so does this. They're right around that same price point. But this one is HA iSCSI only. The other one's HA full DSM software that comes with the Synology. So interesting. I mean, like I said, my testing so far has gone really well with it. Other than this, yesterday when I got most of the testing done, it worked perfectly fine, failing over and everything else. So I still think it's a good, solid product overall. Yeah, obviously I'm a bigger fan. I see someone says they don't like the Synology DSM. It's love-hate. I like some of the integrations with it. It's less flexible than FreeNAS is. It's certainly not open source. So it doesn't have that same kind of flexibility, and it doesn't run ZFS. So if you ask me to build a large-scale server with running something higher end like that, yeah, I'd probably still prefer ZFS for something large. As a matter of fact, I do prefer ZFS. That's what runs all the videos I record. The back end of our systems that we use here at Lawrence Systems are all run on that. So ZFS is truly what we're using for all of that. Therefore, that's probably what I would recommend doing. But for other situations and budget friendly, those DS918s are just kind of an easy drop in. I've done a review of their backup software. I really like it. It's just well integrated. So if you're a 3-person office and you want a self-hosted, self-contained full disk image backup and file sharing, the DS series are hard to beat. They just work really well. So it's kind of one of those things, or what you want to do. For the more flexible and higher performance, I like ZFS for something basic, and as long as you have a solid backup plan around it, I think these are good. Now, they're using ButterFS, which does have bitrot support like ZFS does, and ButterFS is not terrible. It's not ZFS. It's not full-featured as ZFS, but it gets the job done. So, like I said, it comes down to what you want to build out. Let's see, what else do we have here? QNAP or QSnatch. Yeah, I've not worked much with the QNAP. We've taken people off of it. I didn't really I don't know much about the QNAP. I've never set one up for anyone. We seem to have more people angry at them that have moved over and called us about FreeNAS. It seems to be popular that people go, I'm sick of my QNAP and whatever drama they're having with it. So they're not calling us and having us migrate or troubleshoot it. They're contacting us to get things set up on FreeNAS, and we'll ask them what your previous NAS was, and it'll be a QNAP. And yeah. So ButterFS is not production ready. Yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty stable on these Synologies. I haven't had a problem with it. It has the ability to expand, which gets people super excited and hating on, they just really hate on ZFS because it's harder to expand drives. But yeah, I don't know. So someone says, have you done anything with AWS Direct Connect BGP on-prem? Nope. I do not set those. I don't have any AWS Direct Connect systems set up. Oh yeah, we got to have an obligatory OpenSense and MikroTik question. Why not? OpenSense. I thought about, because someone was talking about WireGuard, and that's why they liked OpenSense, and it's kind of it's one of those things. Like, usually I get these people who contact us who are super worried about their privacy, but then want everything cutting edge that's less vetted than other things. And then they're running OpenSense so they can have the latest things like WireGuard. And what I laugh about, and I might do a video on this specific topic, it just takes a little digging for me to do, is all the contributions for WireGuard and the BSD kernel are being invested in and paid for by the people at Netgate. So Netgate is actually pushing the upstream integrations, and OpenSense is doing the integration on their product. But because of the slow and more cautious development that happens in pfSense, it's coming, but it is not coming as fast. So it's funny that the people jump on these other projects, but one of the things that matters and is important aspect to look at when it comes to open source development is who's contributing back to the code base. And you see people like the folks at Netgate contributing back to the code base in meaningful ways. And I don't know that they're not, but I don't know how much they are either, the people at OpenSense. That's one I want to dig into. Now, this goes true for IX systems as well. And one of the engineers pointed out very fairly, and I commented in my video when I talked about TrueNAS scale and talked about the modular nature of the way they write the middleware, that IX Systems is a major contributor to the kernel. So it's not exactly a full truth when I said they don't write the operating system. I mean, IX Systems doesn't, but lots of people that work there are also code contributors to the BSD project. So because they're upstream contributors, technically they have a hand in influencing the way the operating system is being written and enhanced. And I think that's important when you buy hardware or support companies in certain ways, such as, buying a piece of Netgate hardware that contributes to the funding that actually contributes to the code kernel. And that's where, open source is great, and there is a great reason to contribute a lot to the open source community, but you can also see when someone forks a project how they get aggravated, because now you're just pulling all my code updates and spinning your own product over here. And it's fine until those companies start to sell and try to make money off of selling essentially your code and packaging it, because they don't like license fees, but they come up with their own fees that they put on. I don't know, it gets convoluted really quickly, but my annoyance really comes down for the people who want to poo-poo on a company when I'm like, you guys realize that the company itself, that you complain that their hardware is slightly higher, like, $50 more, $100 more than you could just build it yourself for. But I'm also like, yeah, but you're now donating to the people who, one, put the code together for this hardware, in, for example, pfSense, and also contribute back upstream to the BSD system. And that's a really important aspect of the company, that there's upstream money going in there. So yeah, stuff to think about. It's a lot. I would always, Grayson says, and thank you for the donation, Grayson, I would always like to go with self-hosted solution regardless of what I want to use it for, password manager, Garmin smartwatches, home automation. Yeah, there's a middle ground to be had for what, and it's the Wild West right now, you know what I mean? It's very up in the air for figuring out what consumers will or won't pay for when it comes to having things hosted. I had an email with someone the other day back and forth. I said, I can't help you. They're stuck on their mail server because it won't receive emails from my forums. And they're like, well, what errors? What should I do? What should I do? I'm like, I don't know. I can tell you that your mail server errors out. And I can't, that's where it ends. Unless you want to give me access to your mail server and pay me to solve a problem with it, this is why I'm not huge on self-hosted email. They're not sure why their mail server flags mail from my forums as blocked and it denies it. Therefore, they can't get some of the forum notices. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. People using Gmail and Office 365 don't have a problem. I have, for years, I was a mail server admin. I decided that the mail was not worth hosting yourself anymore. Therefore, I've outsourced my company's email to G Suite. They just do a better job of it, and it's where it lives. And the same thing goes with clients. We're still slowly migrating clients off of on-prem solutions, but we are not putting anyone on an on-prem solution. That's just the way of things. I think email is one of those things that it's just not worth it to try and self-host or anything like that. So it's one of those, that one's, to me, a little bit more clear-cut. The other ones are all up in the air. What should or I should not have internally and hosted. But I think that's a fair assessment is, I always do prefer a self-hosted solution, but the other side of that coin is really important with a self-hosted solution, and this goes especially in the tech and IT and MSP space that I'm in, is the issue that comes with people not running updates and having things publicly exposed. Now, if they're behind a VPN, okay, a little bit more secure. Hopefully they update whatever VPN they're using, because there's another one. There are so many people who self-host things. There was a huge number of people who got their Nextcloud instances completely hosed because of a flaw in Nginx. So that Nginx flaw didn't get updated, and everyone just, clicks yes and runs a module because they don't want to go through the trouble to learn and set up Nextcloud, but they have to have it self-hosted, and they want it publicly facing because they don't want to deal with opening up a VPN each time. Then all those people are crying because they got hosed when a virus went around, or botnet, I should say, not really a virus, botnet went around and exploited these and crypto lockered all their stuff. And the crypto that they were doing was actually, the ransom was relatively inexpensive because they realized they were targeting mostly home users. I actually know a few businesses, they wanted support for helping them solve those type of problems. I'm like, I'm going to charge you what I told them I would charge them. Ended up being, they're like, well, for that price, we can just go to G Suite. I'm like, you're right, you can. You're not saving money by doing it unless you're very adept at updating it. So that's where that push-pull has to come back and forth, and you figure out where you want to land with it. And this is, we're segueing into cybersecurity, but this is a huge aspect of it. So catch up with the comments here. Let's see. Did you update to 4.1? I sure did. So let me, matter of fact, because I have curiosities here because of an email I got just before this if something had failed. So let's see. Let's, I am typing that wrong. There we go. Now I'm logged in. Oh, pool encrypted. All right, I didn't decrypt the pool. Now I know why it didn't work. So let me decrypt this pool real quick. And yes, I am on the latest version. So let me put the decryption key in for the pool. There we go. But yes, I am running the latest versions of this. This one's already up to date. This one was updating. It just, it updated and finished. So this one's 11.3U41. And once this one's done starting, it should be 11.3U41. So we'll make sure that one is there too. Yeah, that just came out the other day. So that's definitely a thing that's going on. So unlocked. Look at that. Beautiful. This is unlocked, and then we can go here. Yeah. I know I should have a backup that failed. I have a log and it notified me. Failed. So let's just, well, first we'll do this. Yep, if it reads it, that means it can run. If it can read the backups, let's go ahead and kick it off again. There we go. Kick off the backup. You watch me fix things in real time on here, from notice to going, and we'll give it a second here and see if it works. There you go. Started. Make sure the backup runs. And transferred. There we go. Backup complete. All right, we backed up the VM and everything's back. This is part of my automated backup process on here. So back up and running. So yes, I did load it. Yes, these are all running the latest and greatest version of FreeNAS now. Pizza request has been sent. Yes, Marcus, and pizza request has been received. When am I switching to TrueNAS? I'm going to wait till it hits the next milestone, the release candidate. So as soon as it hits the release candidate, I will be switching over to the TrueNAS for both of my systems. That way I can get better at the testing side of it. Right now, it's just in beta, so I'm not using it. So, excuse me, I got hiccups. As soon as it hits that section right there, I'll go ahead and switch over and go from there on it. Let's see. Back up your data. Yeah, RAID is not a backup. That's very true. So I back it up from one RAID array to another RAID array that replicates to another RAID array that replicates offsite. So that's a 4-3-2-1 backup. There's a lot of duplicated data, but it doesn't take that much to store. So why not keep duplicated data? That's how I feel. Like, it's not that these VMs are. Matter of fact, one of the things about the way when you're doing Delta backups, it's only 228 megs of Delta change between when it runs. So it's kind of like, why not? It's only 228 megs. Why not keep some replicated versions of it out there? So, and what's this one here? So that's from 3 till 4:30, 229 megs, and you can see through the history of it running 614, 536, depending on what things running here. Yeah, it's not that much data. Half a gig every little while going through. And then in between, there's just the database backups that are going. So those are also kept redundant and going. So that's important. Those are, to me, it's one of those, this is the critical lifeblood of my company, is all the data that we have of how much people, all the project details, how much money people owe us. That's a real important one. All of my invoicing and everything else. So there's a lot of things in there that really you don't want to lose. So that's that's important for sure. Matter of fact, I was just looking here the other day. 7,701 invoices sent recently. So our invoice number on here is, what are the new invoice numbers? They're in like the 24, almost 25,000 invoices in here. So over time, there's just a lot of invoices in here. So that accounts for just a lot of tracking for what's going on for things. So, yes. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Yeah, that's something I want to do some testing with, is backing up to G Suite. So FreeNAS has the ability to back up to the G Suite Teams drives and OneDrive. So I want to test some of that because, well, a lot of businesses, well, majority of businesses are on one or the other. So being able to test how the backups work on those platforms is going to be kind of interesting. So that's going to be part of the testing, especially with TrueNAS, that I'm going to start diving into a little bit more because I haven't covered that enough, and I realize there's just too many people that aren't backing up their FreeNAS. Backblaze is still kind of my favorite place to back it up, but there are, of course, other options to do it. So Can you do a video on Invoice Ninja vendor and expenses section? No, because I don't use it because I think it sucks. When the new Invoice Ninja comes out, I'll be doing, well, it's out, but it's not as stable as I'd like it to be. I will be doing an updated video on Invoice Ninja, but currently I don't use the vendor and expenses section. It just doesn't, it doesn't feel complete. It's not as useful to me. So I haven't done a video because if you're finding it too basic, now you know what's wrong with it. You're not missing anything. It's just too basic. So it's not something I really use much of. So those videos are coming. I will be doing, that's why I kind of stopped doing them on this version of Invoice Ninja. The new version, I'll be doing all the new videos on because I do plan to do more. I'm really happy with Invoice Ninja. I'm really excited about all the development of the new product line that I got. So back to the cybersecurity thing. And we'll talk about that because I had such a fun conversation yesterday. One of the challenges with cybersecurity, and I see Xavier's in here. He knows this, and this was actually not Xavier I was discussing this with. This is someone else who works as a SOC engineer, and it's just mind-numbing how many notices and how the war is. It's because all the stuff is so new. I'm just going to preface it with that. There's so many alerts these guys are dealing with over at these, especially the security operations centers. They're dealing with a magnificent amount of alerts. And so many of these alerts are going ignored, not by the SOC team, but they forward it over to the teams individually that are supposed to do with it. And this person was giving me a breakdown of what they did at the SOC. And we were just, having a beer and having a conversation yesterday about it. And it's just so aggravating because they haven't been in the field but only a few years of working in cybersecurity. But only in this 4 years, they're just like face palming at they're like, there's his job is to look at these 9,000 login attempts by this one particular user, which is clearly some type of inside act, potentially. And they're like contacting the site owner inside, trying to tell them you have too many failed login attempts for this particular user, and they're like, we'll get to it later. It's probably just something with a bad password, some application that's expired that's just trying to repeatedly log in. And that's the signal to noise that you're always trying to work out all the time, is trying to figure out, is it that or is it an inside threat? And it's crazy, and I'm trying to find ways I can bring to light some more of these, because it's one of those things like they become jaded very quickly and they start ignoring the messages because the people that they're trying to say it to are ignoring it. And some of them are really false positives. So it's this circle of crazy that is constantly going on in the centers. I'm trying to find some people that maybe I can sit down and do some interviews with. And obviously, here's the problem. The businesses don't want to talk about that aspect of it as much because they want to sell you on why you need their security monitoring. And it's not that you don't need it. It's just that when there's not a lot of actual intelligence following up, it's like, I'm looking for some people that want to talk about the real life and not say where they work, because it's not a criticizing of the place they're working, but of what generally goes on inside these industries a lot. And especially when you start doing the debriefs on some of these. And I had messaged Xavier the other day. We were laughing. I'm like, the Twitter hack, so much more disappointing when basically what sounds like happened in the Twitter hack was someone was a friend of someone that worked at Twitter, got in the Slack channel. In the Slack channel was the Twitter credentials for essentially the God mode, as they called it, the high-level access to Twitter. The special secret login was pinned in a Slack channel for convenience. So now the hack is stupid. It's not even clever. It's not like a really well thought out, pulled off, amazing tack that makes for a good story. Like, nope, I got let into the Slack channel. They had the credentials pinned. I logged in with the God mode type thing. It was just. And that's actually more of what goes on than the more complicated things that go on. It's going to be an interesting, as we grow, learning about cybersecurity, because one, it is very difficult. It's very challenging doing this. People don't understand some of the complexities of securing all these systems. Cisco knows a lot about it right now, and it's very, very hard to do. Well, actually, between F5 Networks and Cisco, let me see if I have both of these on here. I do. So first you got F5 Networks. That was like a week ago, and that's being exploited on BGP systems, high-end systems. Now we have Cisco ASA Firepower with a read a read-only patch reversal vulnerability, and it's just a disaster here for security. It is in. This is so many of these right here. So Rapid 7's Project Sonar just discovered 85,000 of these, and it's across, read this number right here, 17% of the Fortune 500 companies have these high-end Cisco devices publicly exposed with this vulnerability. And yeah, just under 10% discovered or patched. That's in. So much of this is low-hanging fruit in cybersecurity. So many of these attacks that you see, these are the edges that they get in, and then we end up with another Garmin-level event. So, obviously, it sounds like Garmin indirectly paid the ransomware, so we've got Garmin involved here. But it also shows you think a company the size, scale, and scope of Garmin would have a more compartmentalized system, but sounds like they didn't, and that's how they were able to take down every aspect of the company from the call centers there. And it's all probably started with, because many of these times these attackers linger in here for quite a while, and all because some alerts were probably going off, and everyone says that's just another one of those broken applications that sends a bunch of false reports all the time, and eventually ends up into a real breach. So it's really hard to do cybersecurity. That's the best way I can describe it. It's just not easy. And not easy is what's kind of got us in this situation. I don't really see it being solved anytime soon. I see the opposite. I don't think it's as bad as it's going to get. I think it's going to get levels worse until we get better product, until we get better security updates. And when you talk about Cisco, they've been in the news a handful of times for essentially trivial type problems like this. Network path traversal problems are not new. I could easily bet there's a ton of them in a lot of applications, especially written by amateurs. But we're talking Cisco, and that should have been that shouldn't have passed QA. I mean, Cisco's not a company that is small. They're not a company that's budget strapped or resource strapped. They are supposed to be a premium product producer. And of course, people always laugh going, "Oh, you like pfSense and you don't like Cisco." And I'm like, you can't really compare apples to apples, because obviously Cisco does everything, so you can't say, oh, they have more CVs. Well, they have more product versus a company that's producing a single. But when you look at some of these things like firewalls or VPN systems, you really want something with a real solid focus on there. And pfSense does scale. It does do a solid job on that. That's why I'm careful not to just try any old firewall or any old system, because just because it has the more bells and whistles went in there, you're talking about what faces the perimeter of your network. That is the dividing line between you and everything else. You really want that system to be solid, because once they get inside the network, even though I take the time to lock things down inside the network to, compartmentalize and mitigate the potential for lateral movement, still, once they're inside the network, it can be dicey. There's a lot more potential things. There's a lot more services they can go after. So you really have to stop and think about a lot of that. So yeah, someone else says, for Twitter to have 1,000+ people with access to God mode, well, technically anyone inside that Twitter Slack channel potentially had access as well. So yeah, it's. Why would there be a persistent password for God mode? Now, that's another problem as well. So Microsoft has done some, when Microsoft sets their systems up, the way they have and the methodology they use, and this is not just Microsoft, but Microsoft has done some public talks in this, so you can probably find them. Microsoft, if there's a change order that needs to be done in something like Azure, I'm talking like a global change order, it's not like you can log in with God mode credentials. You have to, and similar things happen at AWS and other large enterprise cloud hosting providers, or just large, well-run enterprises. If I want to make a change to something, a change request has to be made to an individual who audited this. Then they allow, within the scope of time and the scope of change, access. So a token may be generated that allows the person who needs to implement the change to do this change. And it's then vetted and audited, and their scope is narrowed, so they can't say, I want to make a change to module B, but then try to change module A. They really keep a restriction, and of course then you keep a log of what was done, and then when it's change has been implemented, you verify that it works, and then you essentially close it again and expire out the tokens. This is very tedious, but tedious is what you need to do a really secure system. It's going to have that. That's the only way we're going to get to this, because security is so much more difficult because, and like Xavier, if he's still on here, he says all the time, red team always wins. Why does the red team win? Because if you're on the blue team, you're defending against cybersecurity threats, you have to be right on every single aspect. If we're running 30 different pieces of software that are publicly exposed, I have to have all 30 pieces of those softwares on the latest patches all the time. I have to have all the users trained all the time to not click on things. All they need is once. And when you're coming at from a red team, the first thing you do is just blanket try all the applications that may be publicly exposed for that company, see if any of them are unpatched. There's your first run. Then you start working on the users if there's a social engineering aspect to the attack. It's like there's so many opportunities for the red team to poke at it that you are like round robin through all these, always watching, always trying to figure out what needs to be patched next. So it's tedious, it can be done, but all this takes time and comes at some certain levels of expense to implement. So that's some of the challenges with cybersecurity that I think that I'm trying to, maybe I'll do some videos on that topic and interview some people that work in it to kind of break that down. It's going to be really, it's going to be kind of a fun talk, but it's hopefully eye-opening to people who want to know, peel back a layer, what actually goes on at these network operations centers, security operations center, what they're doing, why things go wrong there, and I think it's kind of a fun conversation that I'll get around to having and see I'll find someone who can share some war stories publicly. That might be kind of fun as well. So, it's a lot of fun. So let me catch up with the questions here. Yeah, he's like Xavier, right? Always wins. He's only got to be right once. Yeah, wow. Xavier says, I recently cracked a password-protected zip of an attacker just using a word list. Xavier's got another good point. Even if you've been on the red team, if you change sides and go on the blue team, you realize just how hard it is. Because you're not just trying to look for holes in that beautiful wall they built. You're certain they're trying to build the bricks and patch all the holes and keep it on there, and you realize what a challenge it is. So what else do we have here? So someone asked about, yes, you can run pfSense virtualized. If you want to, it's possible. It's not my preferred method of doing it. I prefer pfSense to run on bare metal. It's not like it takes a ton of bare metal to run it. So, yeah. And I want to do some updated videos on the way. I have 1 hour before 5 reasons CompTIA loves. Oh. But one of the other things I'm going to talk about, not today specifically, but an updated video, because I think people just don't understand enough about how Errata works, is one, I'll do another video on setting up Errata. But, no, I don't run a virtual pfSense at home. I still run pfSense at home on hardware. But I will do some updated Errata videos and talk about tuning Errata, because things have changed over time. So that I want to do some updated videos to talk about, one, tuning it and setting it back up. And I think I didn't cover enough in that video because so many people call wanting Errata until they realize they probably don't need it. Their use case is completely wrong for why they think they need it. So I'm going to have a video about where Errata does work and where Errata doesn't work. And that's an important thing to talk about, especially because I was cleaning up false positives with the latest update that came from Errata, which is also something you have to do. People want to set it and forget it. I'm like, good luck with that. That's not how that works. That's what you pay companies with Security Operations Center for, set it and forget it. And they're not forgetting it. You're forgetting it by paying them a fee. If you want to run Errata yourself, you have to be your own SOC analyst. XCP, NG, and HA with pfSense VM will never go down. Even HA can go down. I mean, there's a pause when it reboots the VM, so there's still a dwell time, versus running HAPF Sense on two identical pieces of hardware is a seamless failover. So HA and PF Sense on real hardware is probably more seamless. Now you could run HAPF Sense virtual and also an HA virtual server to handle it, which would probably work, but then now you've got so many more complexities to it. But if that's what you want to run it, you can. Hardware for firewalls is just not that expensive. The other problem is every time you got to load and reboot your systems that are running your VMs, or if you have to take them in or out of service and you have to Google a problem, you took out on your internet and you can't Google a problem. So that's another reason for it. So Snort IPS policy section works great. It depends on what you're running. So some of the things we run that are normal, no problem, they work fine. Things that are less normal, such as Screen Connect, it has a hard time with. So and because all right, because the where was that? Someone. All right, sorry, got distracted because I had to see a message on there. Sorry. Anyways, the policy selections, things like that, they work, but once you start running something like Screen Connect, once you start running something that's non-standard, UniFi, and it starts going through your firewall and Errata sees the traffic and the traffic isn't known, it's not web traffic, it starts applying the wrong rules to it. I had actually had a bunch of flags today for Oracle database. So the Oracle database, you know what I don't run? Any Oracle databases. You know what Errata thinks? I'm running one today. When we found out that if you the file transfer in Screen Connect gets flagged as an Oracle database when you move files around, and it was blocking file moving. These are the kind of problems you run into with Errata when you run something that's not standard. And we run into this with other people too who set up Errata and are trying to figure out why they have so many problems. I'm like, because Errata thinks it's something different than it is. We had a client with an HVAC controller. Errata hates his HVAC controller. It thinks it's something else all the time. So there's a tons of false positives in there. Why? Because Errata wasn't tuned on HVAC controllers. So if it matches the pattern of traffic, it goes, that traffic that's all encrypted, I think it matches this pattern, therefore let's stop it because that pattern is this attack. It's not. It's the HVAC system. Someone changed the temperature at a building. The traversal of data was causing a problem with Errata. It sees it and stops it. Solution is don't put Errata on the HVAC filter, and also don't keep we also got rid of the HVAC system being publicly exposed. So that's something we thought was a terrible idea as well. So they thought they were mitigating with Errata, instead they were causing more problems, and of course exposing HVAC systems is never a good idea. Oh, let's see. Had to turn. Someone said their soft phone at home also got flagged. Yes. Well, see, the fun thing is Errata doesn't care what port things are on. It wasn't flagging it by port. It flagged it by traffic matching, not by port. So it was called the Golden Gate, I think is what it was called. Here, we'll do this. I'll show you what these stupid logs look like, but I'm going to filter them real quick for personal information. So let's go here. We're going to show these to you real quick and walk through some of the stupidity. All right, edit. Let's see. There we go. Here's a quick slightly redacted screenshot of what kind of things you see on there. So there's times that, okay, it's on the spam house list or poor reputation, ET drop. But this one right here was Golden Gate arbitrary file write attempt. So I looked that up. It's the Oracle Golden Gate system, which we don't use, kept flagging in there. And that's where these are some of the things that you get on there. I mean, there's network scans, potentially bad traffic, likely hostile traffic. Some of these are legit, some of these are not. Some of these really were just scans, but this particular one, that's why the rule had to get disabled, which is a little yellow mark there. Turns out file transfers in Screen Connect, the new version that we just loaded, not the old version. Well, I can't tell. We updated both the same day. Errata got an update, and so did our Screen Connect software, and this was the result. We suddenly had traffic that was being flagged that wasn't being flagged before. So those are just the things you have to deal with, and that's just part of running it, is those type of things. That's what happens. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's one of those things with cybersecurity. It's never ending. It's ever ongoing, moving forward and doing this and checking all these logs and blocking lots of things. And, you know, we blocked first, it broke things, and then we roll back. So we do err on the side of caution. We block as opposed to not blocking. But then when blocking breaks things, we just jump over there and you start looking at it. You look at your alerts and you figure out what needs to be done, what rule sets need to be changed. And this is just the way of things. This is the ongoing, ever-going circle that makes this happen with cybersecurity. So that's the, that's how all of that works. Let's see, what else do we have in here? HVAC, would that be best to put IoT devices on a VLAN of its own? Probably. People go crazy with putting them on their own, and don't, would be my first answer. Not everything needs to go on its own. Everyone's like, oh, I want my Sonos on a separate network because I'm scared of it. Then don't use it. Don't put it in your house if you don't want to use it. Because they want it on a separate network, but they want it to work easily. And I'm like, that's diametrically opposed, because devices like, we'll say Chromecast is a perfect example. The Chromecast, you want that to work? Keep it on the same network as your phone that you're going to Chromecast with. Putting it on a separate network, good luck. Every time there's an update, it breaks something. My old video on how to get Chromecast working doesn't work because they changed a bunch of things on the Chromecast. So there's more and more trouble doing it. It's best, even in my own house, my phone and my Chromecast, guess what? Same network, because it solves that problem and the stupidness of that. So enterprise network run HVAC controls are all on their own VLAN, yes. You want to try to segment that network down, because you're not trying to control the HVAC system from necessarily the same network that the people are running computers on and things like that. So switch networks on your phone. That's probably an even better idea. But your phone was kind of designed to be in a hostile environment. My phone, so we have a secure network here for Wi-Fi that has high entropy, more difficult to log into. I don't even bother logging my phone on there. My phone is expected to be in a hostile environment all the time, because it connects to things all the time. It connects to the, Google networks, blah, blah, blah. So the way I would always look at it is the phone can just be on that network with all the other IoT devices. This is an IoT device, essentially. So that's basically how I look at it. So yeah, so if you need to create more than one network and to switch back and forth, that probably makes more sense on your phone there. Yeah, the wife had to work today. She couldn't. She had to work later today. That's why she's not here. I could have did the vlog later, but I chose not to. I said, I still have some stuff to do. I'm not going to let this go substantially longer than this, but I have a few things I want to get done today, including my son wants pizza. So apparently I got to bring my son pizza. So You can use the Avaya package, and you'll find that it doesn't consistently work with the Chromecast. It doesn't work near as well as putting it on the same network. So putting your phone on a separate network doesn't make any sense to me. So that's I keep hearing people ask that, put the phone on the same network as the IoT devices. This is an IoT device. Simple as that. Phones don't really have things open. They don't have, unless you've goofed with the phone in some way, the default out of the box is secure on most of these phones. So, pizza and beer, yeah, that's later. So that's that's my thoughts on that. And I need to do an updated video again, maybe specifically target the home users, because then we get less calls from home users that are willing to pay us to set up their networks, but also have crazy ideas of how they want to set up their networks that just don't work. It's just one of those things that if someone's posting here in another language that I don't speak, so I'm not sure what they're. I'm not going to use Google Translator. I regret to tell you, D. Oliveria, that I do not speak the language you are asking. So post in the forums and post it in English. I'm not bilingual, duolingual, or trilingual. I speak a single language poorly. That's English. At least according to all the YouTube comments I get, I'm not the best English speaker. And I usually say it to people, I'm not a great English speaker. Like, oh, what's your native tongue? I'm like, oh, it's English. I'm just not good at it. My wife will attest to my poor grammar from time to time. Let's see. Yeah, I do not speak Portuguese. I speak a poor form of. I don't speak English. I speak America. Is that right? Yes, my two languages. I don't even have two languages. I only know bad English. I mean, I know I could drop that into Google Translate and hopefully understand, but it's probably best if you do speak English. It is probably better to put it in English, and it's going to be. I mean, I really should learn another language. It's been like my to-do list, but my other challenge is I'm lazy on that. Like it interests me for enough to say it, and then my interest goes like this. So there's like a lazy factor of I don't want to learn it. I'd rather spend time playing with servers and hardware and equipment and UniFi stuff. That interests me. Say verbally I'm interested in learning another language. I know the reality is it's not that I'll dive deep into it. Build a new server or 1K server. I think there's some incredible deals out there for used servers. So used enterprise servers right now are going for so little. Xavier spent a little bit of money buying a used one, but he's got like 60 VMs running on it now. Like it's crazy how much you can get and how many things you can run on it. He spent a few $1,000s, but it's like 100. I think it has 192 gigs of RAM in it or something like that, or 128 gigs of RAM. Vast amounts of storage, lots of cores. It's more than you could probably run on a server that you built yourself. And reliability-wise, these enterprise servers, they last. They hold up really well. Now, especially for things like power supplies. You know how easy it is to change a power supply, and most of these enterprise servers, huge numbers of them come with hot swap power supplies, including like this Synology, or just out of the reach of the camera, but I'll show you, is, hey, we got a Supermaker power supply that I just slid out really quickly. So when you look at the enterprise boxes, provided the motherboard doesn't go bad, but even that you can probably find a replacement for, but statistically, my experience with most all enterprise servers has been they get pulled out because they're old, not because they failed. So they have a life cycle that generally exceeds their expected 5-year hardware cycle, and some people do drag them out longer than 5 years. But you can find some that are maybe only 3 years old because financial companies that are in like the stock trading markets or companies that have really high demand for compute power, they cycle their servers out faster because they always need cutting edge and it's worth it for them. So you can find these middle markets such as Tech Supply Direct. We have an offer code if you're interested, or just eBay. You can find some really good deals on servers. To me, that you'll get such a good deal. It's almost become right now, Build It is less attractive in some ways because there's a glut of these servers floating around on the market right now. Yeah, electricity is important when it comes to costing on these servers. So you definitely pay attention to that, because if you want to get an old server, you may also find that it costs you more in electricity. Now, we have relatively inexpensive electricity right here in Michigan, so that factor isn't as much there, but it may be there for some other places. Plus, you do have to calculate the long term, because electricity prices are what they are today, and they're going to be more in the future. That's just a consistent thing, and they generally grow faster than the rate of inflation. So, yeah, they go up. So there is costing that has to be considered, and servers, generally the enterprise ones, weren't necessarily designed for low noise. So if this is going to be in the same room as you may want to consider a custom built server, because you can build something out of like a Ryzen that's relatively fast, might be lower wattage, and really quiet. So those things do factor into it. If you can learn Python, you can learn Spanish. Well, maybe. I don't know. I guess if I wanted to learn Spanish, I could learn Spanish. That would probably be a factual statement. Someone says, besides installing certain Errata on a local server, what alternatives are there if local firewall is the only firewall? I already have geo-blocking and downloading bad sites. Just, you don't need, like, I don't run Errata at home. I don't need it. I don't run Snort at home. I don't need it. PF Blocker, I like it. So that's about it. Do you back up Invoice Ninja, and how do you do it? I just have a cron job that backs up the data hourly out of the database, and then earlier in the show you watched me on the Delta backups that the whole VM gets backed up every hour. And that's automated through my hypervisor. But you can just set a cron job to dump the database out to a file and send it somewhere. Make sure you encrypt it. And use a good password. Is hardware or software RAID better? Hardware RAID is not as good as software RAID, but that's going to vary. If you're using like a ZFS system, FreeNAS system, it's going to be far superior. A lot of questions here. Catching up. There's actually, if you're going really low power, look at my friend Jay's channel, Learn Linux TV. He's got a whole video series on how to build I think they're Raspberry Pi clusters. So those are super quiet, obviously, and low wattage, and can do quite a bit. Egress filtering is a nightmare. So making one, I mean, it's not hard to do egress filtering on pfSense, just block. You just put block rules for things you don't want outgoing. It's not done very often because it creates a management problem of troubleshooting every application that breaks when you do it. So it's not interesting to do. It's arbitrarily easy to do to put an egress filter on pfSense. We've had people ask us about it. We've had one guy that we did it for, but then he ended up being angry at how many applications we use non-standard outgoing ports besides 443. And I'm like, yeah, this is what we said would happen. It's really weird. See, sometimes people call us with terrible ideas, but they think it's the more secure way to do it. And we're like, well, we'll sit here and write rules. And, 3 hours into rule writing, tracing applications at a company, they're realizing how challenging it is writing an egress filter for everything. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, hey, TeamViewer quit working. Hey, this quit working. Hey, that quit working. Yep, sure does. That's what we expected to happen. We have to examine what outgoing ports everything has. So I don't know that I'll do a video on it. It's just not something I highly recommend. It doesn't, to me, add to your security, especially because the majority of the viruses to blend in with the other traffic use standard ports. So it's not like you're stopping some hacker inside your network. Almost always, they focus on using common ports, especially port 443, encrypted, so they blend in with the other traffic and don't, you look for anomalies on a network. So this is what, if you have a analysis team, a network operations center looking for anomalies, they look for unusual port activity. then that is a low-hanging fruit, and maybe you will catch those people who are using older hacking tools that used unusual ports. Most of the time, they're using much more advanced tools because they expect that kind of behavior, so now they just slip out port 443, and you didn't accomplish anything. What do we have here? What about Temple OS? Don't expect me to do it. Can System 76 be my new laptop? When I get retired of my L480, I will probably get a System 76 one. I really wanted to buy one. This was just on sale for so cheap. I bought this cheaper than you can buy it right now, and it's a year old. So a year later, I still paid less for this than you can buy this one for. So, yeah. No, Windows XP Firewall did not block non-standard egress. Not that I recall. Yeah, the systems, I did a review of the System 76 laptops. They are really nice. What do you guys charge? Our charge to set up a PF Sense has nothing to do with how fast it is. So we have a hire us button at the top of our website on the contact form if you want to hire us for a project. What was I going to talk about next? And this is something, one of those, this was clever, so I figured I'll bring it up real quick. Because this is where we're going as things get a little bit better. Now, this particular tool caught my eye because of how it works. And this is the Doki Linux malware and infiltrates Docker Cloud instances. They're misconfigured to get in, but these are the sophisticated attacks that we're starting to see, not the low-hanging fruit. Now, the people that do this, these are some real talented people to dive in and get on here. So, attackers targeting misconfigured cloud Docker instances running Linux distributions with an undetectable strand of malware. I think that's more for headline. There's a lot. It's really hard to detect some of the malware on Linux because once they get root level access to a Linux machine, it's over. Just blow that machine away. You're never going to get them out of there. Just hose that machine. Don't fix it. That's the answer I have for that. But this is where it gets interesting, is finding the C2 server. So as opposed to relying on a particular domain and a set of malicious IPs, the Doki uses dynamic DNS services like DynDNS combined with a unique blockchain-based domain generation algorithm, and it can generate and locate IP addresses of its C2 real-time servers and then faux home. The malware's behavior is so stealthy it went undetected for over 6 months, having been submitted to the malware analysis and virus total on January 14th, as shown by a new report in Tensor. So even today, observed bleeping appear, only 6 engineers marked the sample as malicious because, wow, that is wild. And they're finding a bunch more of them out there. So this is the one that's going to get ramped up. Now, what this happens is more and more of these companies who have misconfigured public-facing servers, things not behind VPNs, this is a popular way to set things up. You set up a single sign-on. That single sign-on then federates to the other applications you want to use, and they're all public-facing. So now they don't attack the sign-on, they don't attack the VPN, they go and attack the applications and things running on, for example, a Docker instance on there. So it's a really cool, clever attack, but that's what we're going to start seeing more of, is some of these more complicated ones in cybersecurity on there. These are the ones that hopefully something like a web application firewall in front of it detects those type of attacks. This is where something like you would have maybe a Errata in front, or even something more advanced. And of course, because it's all misconfigured Docker, that's where the problem comes on for some of that. So, so yeah, that's it's going to be a mess for sure. Dealing with that, I don't know. That one caught my eye because it's like that's interesting malware. That's not like credentials pinned to a Slack channel. That's not some wide open unpatched system with a directory traversal problem. This is some really clever malware that gets in there and hangs out for a while to gather information. So, would I go for FreeBSD over Linux? No. Should I have moved the phone in the other room? Yes, I should have put it in there. There's a phone sitting on the kitchen table, and I'm too lazy to get up and get it. So is single sign-on a bad practice? No, well-implemented single sign-on is not bad. It's not impossible to do. It is plausible to do. It actually, in some ways, makes things a little bit easier. There is, and I'll leave this with you guys to do some reading on here, is this. Here we go. You should listen to this. And this is the Risky Business Soapbox, Facebook Under the Hood. This is a podcast. And this is the Facebook engineering team. And they break down how they created all the under the hood and how they do single sign-on for things and how nervous they are making things public-facing for their employees for their sign-on stuff. But it's the only way to handle things at scale for the way they do things. So I thought this was cool. I thought this was interesting. It dives into the security and engineering to how Facebook does it. And from a standpoint of scale and scope between Facebook and Google, and Facebook specifically, I think maybe more so than Google, because you're talking about a company that is a massive singular application, which is Facebook.com, and how they handle things. Google is still a really large application, but Google's also somewhat segmented into different departments. But I don't know enough about the back end of Google to say how singular your sign-on will get you, but they break down some of the challenges of handling things at the scale Facebook does. And if Facebook can do it and properly do it, and they do actually, by the way, for those of you that don't know, Facebook does contribute back to the open source core group. Much of the a lot of the tooling that Facebook has come up with has also been made back into open source products and given back to the community, which I think is really cool. But they break down some of that. And of course, they talk about some of the single sign-on situations. So it can be done if Facebook can do it. And Facebook has not been in the news for a breach themselves. Egregious abuse of every other thing they do. Oh yeah, Facebook's in the news for all kinds of horrible things they've done. Just cybersecurity failure isn't one of them. So we'll get them that. Yes, XO runs on the same in a VM on the same server running XCP-ng. I watch my getting started with XCP-ng video, and I break down how to do that. I have a how to build your open source lab with XCP-ng. I did the video this year, and I cover that. Storage server under $500 is going to be an eBay find. It kind of depends. There's some inexpensive things out there like Synology makes that are okay. But if you want to build a FreeNAS box, you're probably going to go to eBay to try to get that price point. Worst server room? Oh God, I don't know. There's a ton of them that are bad. I don't know about worst. There's so many bad ones. Yeah. Yeah, Docker is a love-hate relationship because it adds complexity to the networking. So when you say you found out that Docker creates firewall rules and modifies stuff, yes, that is definitely a challenge. Like and this is where a lot of people run into bigger issues, is they don't know how to use Docker, but they just found someone who has a Docker image that works for the thing they want to do, and they load it without properly configuring it, and then we have the Doki ransom or Doki malware running around going, is it Doki, whatever the name of that stuff was I was just talking about. Is it, yeah, DOKI. So, yes. It's a mess. Yeah, eBay and Supermicro. That's going to be your cheap find for that. I'm reading the comments here. But yeah, eBay and Supermicro are a good combination. Matter of fact, you can look in eBay and search specifically for FreeNAS and find FreeNAS ones in there. So, Snap and Flatpak versus Docker. That's a whole different one. Where's my Ansible friend? Running around doing Ansible things. Jay has some new videos on Ansible as well on his channel. I prefer to use VMs over Docker, but that doesn't scale as well as Docker does. So for the number of VMs I run, I'm fine with running VMs. For people who go, I need 300 VMs, well, or 300 instances, and Docker may be a more effective use of resources, Docker may be for you. Just make sure you configure it properly. So it's not that I'm against it, it's the use case is what it comes down to. Or as Grayson says, you can use LXC and LXC, so Linux containers. That's another option as well. I don't use Graylog and Grafana, so you're not likely to see me do a video on it. People ask, I don't use it, so that's why I don't do a video. Maybe one day, but that day's not today. BSD jails, yeah. I do use some BSD jails because of the convenience and they offer inside of FreeNAS. They just work. So because FreeNAS makes managing them easy with IO Cage, I got no complaints. Like, it just works. You need more hard drive storage? I don't know, buy more hard drives. I don't understand that as a question. Nope, I don't use Rancher or Kubernetes either. So no videos on those. I don't use them. It's not part of my daily usage. Therefore, I only really do videos on things that I use in some way. That's, you know, or related to what I use. But like learning an entire application, like let me learn Kubernetes to teach Kubernetes is not a likely scenario. Because if I don't use it every day, I don't get good at it. So I'm not going to take the time to learn it just to do a video on it. And it takes me too long to learn something when I don't have a goal other than to teach someone else how to use it. And I wouldn't be offering any real world experience using it because I don't use it in the real world. So I can't help you with the Kubernetes videos. Super glue would just be a video of me being angry at gluing my fingers together. I'm not good at using super glue either. I have definitely glued my fingers together, which I guess that makes you good at using super glue if that was the goal. But that doesn't seem like the goal at all, so... Yeah, I mean, I don't recommend using the, I only use Orchestra. I don't recommend using the XCP and G-Center at all. I tell people all the time, why are you using that? There was some problems with it in one of the last updates, and I'm like, yeah, it's not deprecated yet, but the writing's on the wall. And as long as they have people to maintain it, it'll be maintained, but the moment people stop bothering with it, it's just going to fall to the wayside. It's not a popular product. XCPNG with Xen Orchestra is the way to go. That's, yeah. So hopefully that makes sense on there. So yeah, XO is the UI interface. It works great. Oh, let's see. I think that's about it. I am going to wind this down because it is 5:30 and I have some stuff to go do. 5:30 my time. So, I will answer that question. I'm going to get online and order a pizza. So bash that like button. It is, how many bash like buttons? Let's watch people bash it. We'll do that for the last couple of minutes here. Let's watch that number go up. 98 likes. Look at that. I mean, there's 300 and something of you, so sure. Oh, 109? Look at these updates. Yes. Yeah, if ES6i is what makes you happy, then keep using it. That's my answer. 106, 130, there we go. Everyone's doing this. Thank you very much. Feel free to join the channel. That does help support this channel. So that's also, I see a lot of you are already joined, so that's awesome. Order pizza for Corey. I might not today order you a pizza, Corey. Thank you for being on here, Corey. Is much appreciated, and thank you for being a supporter of the channel. Sericata versus Snort. I like Sericata. I don't know why. I don't even have a reason anymore. There was reasons before that I forgot, and I don't think they matter anymore. Use whichever one makes you happy. right now I have Errata tuned. So my answer, why I use Errata? Because I've already taken the time to tune it. I don't feel like tuning Snort because I already tuned Errata. So hopefully that makes sense. Any more questions? But it's Friday already. I guess, yeah. My guess is that you are in some European place where it is Friday. For me, it's Thursday afternoon and time to go outside and enjoy the outside. Whatever it is I do outside, which is probably something today with bicycles or motorcycles. Oh, yeah, cars. I'll do car things. So, trying to think if I have anything to share here. Nothing to share. Oh, I got a friend with a glow-in-the-dark car. So there's that. So that's something I can share. This is just awesome. So I can leave you guys with that. I'll leave you that glow-in-the-dark Hellcat that a friend of mine has. So that was, I'll go hang out and do car stuff. I do that sometimes as well. What else was in here? Oh, some stupid pictures of garlic bread. I don't think anything else to share in here. Oh, watching Steve smash. We were getting rid of phones. If you wonder what we do here for fun, yep, we took apart a printer and made a thing to whack phones with. So I like just being random at the end here. So let's see. If you reach this part of the video, this is where Tom just goes completely off topic. Can pfSense set to VLAN to a specific port on switch? Sure. So anyways, I'm just going to babble on randomly about stuff, so I'm going to stop doing that right now, and that's it. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for bashing the like button. I got up to 153 of you. Thank you for all your donations, and thank you for all that do the channel. So the heavy phone whacker. Should I upload that to Twitter about us breaking phones? It was just when we got rid of an old phone, we were like, let's just beat it with a thing because it was one of those days. So if someone says, hey, you should upload that, maybe I will. I don't know. I can always put it somewhere. I don't know where that kind of stuff goes, or if it really belongs online, because there's enough people doing stupid things online. Do I need to join them? I don't know. All right. Thank you. Follow me on Twitter in between now. Go on my forums, message. That's a place I spend a lot of time. So thank you very much. And now we end the stream.